She was bleeding on the airport floor, and he just walked away like she was nothing. October 2019. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Monica Harrison sat on cold marble tiles, her body shaking, her face swollen beyond recognition. Blood dripped from her lip onto her designer dress, the same dress she'd worn to impress him just hours before. Around her, strangers stepped over her without looking down. Travelers rolling luggage, families rushing to gates, security guards pretending not to notice. Nobody helped. Nobody asked. Nobody cared. Derek Richardson had left her here on purpose. The worst part wasn't the pain. It wasn't even the humiliation of sitting broken in front of hundreds of people. The worst part was that she recognized exactly when it happened, the moment he decided she was worthless enough to abandon. It was in his eyes when he stood up from the bench, looked at her like she was garbage, and walked toward the exit without saying a single word. She'd made excuses for 3 years. The first hit was an accident, he'd been drinking, stressed about a deal. The second was her fault, she'd upset him by mentioning her own success at work. The third, fourth, fifth hits blurred together into a life where she was always wrong, always deserving, always the problem. His apologies came with roses and promises. His love felt like ownership. His jealousy felt like care. But this time, there was no apology waiting. No flowers. No promise that it would never happen again. Monica wiped blood from her chin with trembling fingers. Her phone was still in her purse. She could call someone. Her mother. Her best friend. The police. But shame wrapped around her throat like a hand, squeezing, suffocating, making it impossible to ask for help. She sat alone on that airport floor for 47 minutes. Nobody knew her. Nobody recognized the woman who'd been featured in Atlanta's design magazines as one of the city's rising stars. The woman who'd built a business from nothing. The woman who'd believed love was supposed to feel like safety. That woman didn't exist anymore. Monica pulled herself up using a nearby chair. Her legs barely held her weight. She moved toward the bathroom, caught her reflection in a mirror, and didn't recognize the person staring back. Bruised. Broken. Defeated. And then something shifted. Something fundamental changed in the way her eyes met her own reflection. She wasn't going to call for help. She wasn't going to fall apart here on a bathroom floor in front of strangers. She was going to survive this. She was going to rebuild. She was going to make sure Derek Richardson paid for what he'd done. Not immediately. Not with violence. But he would pay. She made herself a promise standing in front of that mirror. 5 years. She'd give herself 5 years to become someone Derek Richardson would never see coming. Someone powerful. Someone he should have been terrified to hurt. What would you do if the person you loved tried to destroy you? Has someone you trusted ever betrayed you completely? Because Monica's about to make a choice that changes everything. This moment, right here on this airport floor, this is where her real story begins. If this story is hitting you, drop a heart in the comments. They say time heals wounds. Monica didn't want to heal. She wanted to transform. The day she arrived in Miami, she was still wearing the bruises. She found a small apartment in Wynwood, locked the door, and spent 2 weeks without leaving. She didn't shower. Didn't eat. Didn't answer her phone. She just sat with her pain, letting it settle into her bones, understanding every single thing it had cost her. Then she made a decision. Monica walked to the mirror, looked at her reflection, and began erasing Monica Harrison. The woman Derek had broken. Gone. She cut her hair short and sharp. Changed its color from soft brown to bold black. She'd worn it long for Derek, he'd liked it that way. Now she owned it differently. She rebuilt her business from scratch. Not as an interior designer in Atlanta, too close, too easy to find. She became a business consultant in South Florida, using a professional name that nobody connected to her past. She worked 70-hour weeks, learning everything about real estate, finance, and development. She studied Derek's world like it was a language she needed to master. Money came from smart investments and careful deals. She bought and sold properties. She networked with powerful people, investors, entrepreneurs, developers. She made sure everyone knew her as someone capable, someone brilliant, someone untouchable. But beyond the business, Monica built armor. She surrounded herself with strong women, other entrepreneurs, other survivors who'd clawed their way up from nothing. They didn't know about Derek. They didn't know about the airport floor. They just knew Monica as someone who decided to own her power. One woman in particular, a female investor named Catherine, started appearing at meetings, at dinners, at events. There was something between them, something charged and electric. Catherine's hand would brush Monica's arm during conversations. Her eyes held knowing looks. One night at a hotel bar, Catherine whispered, "You're dangerous," and Monica felt alive in a way she'd thought was impossible. She didn't pursue it. She couldn't afford distractions. But she let herself feel it, the reminder that her body could belong to her again. That desire didn't have to mean danger. 5 years passed in a blur of reinvention. Monica became someone new. Confident. Powerful. Disconnected from the girl who'd sat bleeding on an airport floor. Then one morning, scrolling through Business Miami while drinking her coffee, she saw his face. Derek Richardson. Launching a massive development project in South Florida. Right in her territory. A gala announcement for the project next month. Monica set down her coffee cup slowly. Have you ever had 5 years to rebuild yourself? To become something completely different? Monica did. And now the universe was giving her something she'd almost stopped believing in, a second chance. Like if you've thought about disappearing and starting over. Subscribe for what comes next. The universe has a twisted sense of timing. Or maybe Monica had finally caught a break. She printed the magazine article, stared at Derek's photograph for exactly 2 minutes, then began researching. Derek Richardson, 47, founder of Richardson Development Group. Wealthy beyond measure. Connected. Powerful. Remarried to a younger woman named Jasmine Cole, a model with 200,000 Instagram followers and a smile that looked practiced and empty. Their engagement had been announced 6 months ago in a splashy wedding spread in Architectural Digest. Monica found photos. Derek in a tuxedo, Jasmine in white, both looking like the perfect power couple. But what interested Monica wasn't their wedding. It was the patterns. Derek still had the same arrogance in his eyes. The same way he positioned himself at the center of every photo. The same look that said he believed he was untouchable. He had no idea what was coming. Monica pulled together every piece of information available. Business dealings. Financial reports. Articles from local Atlanta news. She found the old stories, nothing explicit about his domestic life, but hints. A restraining order filed by an ex-girlfriend in 2015, later dropped. A lawsuit from a business partner that settled quietly. A pattern of women, conquered and discarded. She learned that Jasmine had been with him for 3 years. They'd met at a charity event. Married after a 6-month engagement. Quick. The kind of quick that suggested either genuine love or calculated strategy. Monica needed to know which one. She made her decision on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in her office overlooking Biscayne Bay. The gala was happening in 2 weeks. Derek was hosting it at the Perez Art Museum to celebrate his newest development project, a luxury residential tower right in South Beach. Everyone who mattered in Miami real estate would be there. Everyone would include Monica. She picked up her phone and called a contact, someone she'd met at a networking event who worked with the project investors. Someone who owed her a favor. I need an invitation to Derek Richardson's gala, she said. The invitation arrived 3 days later. Monica looked at herself in the mirror of her penthouse. 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks to become someone Derek Richardson would never recognize. 2 weeks to set the trap that would finally give her what she'd built her entire life toward, confrontation with the man who tried to destroy her. She touched her reflection, remembering the girl on the airport floor, and whispered a promise. We're finally going to make him pay. What would you do if your worst nightmare suddenly appeared in your city? Have you ever had to face someone who hurt you? Monica's about to walk into that gala as someone completely different, and Derek has no idea what's coming. Drop your predictions below. What happens when they finally meet? Revenge is a dish served cold, but Monica was about to serve something far colder, truth. She spent those 2 weeks building a weapon out of information. Monica's apartment transformed into a war room. One wall held Derek's life, his business deals, his connections, his vulnerabilities. Another wall held research on his marriage, his finances, his secrets. She had documentation of 3 different women who'd filed complaints against him, all settled out of court. She had financial records showing shell corporations and suspicious transactions. She had photographs of him from years ago, his eyes the same cold, calculating blue she remembered. She wasn't going to physically hurt him. Violence was too obvious, too easy to defend against. Monica was building something more devastating, psychological destruction through the systematic introduction of doubt. She studied him like he was a case study. Derek Richardson's ego was his greatest weakness. He believed himself above consequences. He believed nobody could touch him. He believed that his money, his power, his connections made him untouchable. Monica was going to dismantle that belief brick by brick. For her appearance, she made changes. Not to hide, but to transform. She'd been going to salons for years, maintaining the short black hair, the sharp aesthetic. Now she wore her hair long again, but different. Sophisticated. She invested in a wardrobe that screamed success without screaming Derek style. Classic. Powerful. Unmistakably expensive without being flashy. She practiced her introduction. New name, professional history, believable backstory. She memorized details about Miami real estate development that would let her speak credibly to investors. She rehearsed how to smile, how to extend her hand, how to look him directly in the eyes. The night before the gala, Monica stood in front of her mirror in her penthouse. City lights spread below her like scattered diamonds. She wore a black dress, elegant, expensive, unforgettable. She looked at her reflection and didn't see the broken woman anymore. She saw power. She picked up her phone and called Catherine, the investor who'd pursued her years ago. "I need you to introduce me to someone at tomorrow's event," Monica said. "Introduce me as someone successful. Someone important. Make sure Derek Richardson knows I matter." Catherine's voice came back warm with recognition. "Still playing the game?" "Not a game," Monica said quietly. "This is business." She hung up and began mentally preparing. Tomorrow she would walk into Derek's world. Tomorrow she would introduce herself with her professional name and watch his face for recognition. Tomorrow she would begin the slow, methodical destruction of a man who tried to break her. Monica had spent 5 years becoming this: a strategist, a survivor, a woman who'd learned to use her intelligence as a blade. Derek Richardson thought he was untouchable. Monica was about to teach him that every action has consequences. She lay in bed that night and didn't sleep. She was too alive. Too ready. Too close to the moment that would change everything. What happens when a survivor becomes a strategist? Have you ever planned something so carefully that it became art? Monica's not just walking into that gala, she's walking in as a weapon. But is this justice or obsession? Keep watching to find out. Comment below, psychology or revenge? What would you do? He didn't recognize her. And that was the first death blow. The Perez Art Museum gleamed with excess: crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, servers in tuxedos carrying appetizers on silver platters. The Miami elite mingled under modern art installations, their conversations a low hum of business deals and social positioning. Monica entered at 8:47 p.m. She wore the black dress like armor. Her hair fell in waves down her back. She moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who belonged there because she did. She'd become someone important. Someone successful. Someone real. Catherine found her within minutes, linked her arm through Monica's, and began introductions. "This is an incredible entrepreneur," Catherine said to a group of investors. "Brilliant in real estate development. You should know this woman." People smiled, extended hands, asked questions about her work. Monica answered with calm precision, letting her intelligence do the talking. She was exactly who she'd built herself to be. Then she saw him. Derek stood across the room, holding court with a group of business associates. He looked exactly like he did in the photographs: tailored suit, expensive watch, that same arrogant tilt to his chin. Her body recognized him before her mind fully processed it. Her heartbeat quickened. Her palms went slightly damp. She let herself feel it for exactly 3 seconds. Then she put it away. Monica excused herself from Catherine's group and moved toward the bar. She ordered a martini she didn't plan to drink. She positioned herself where Derek could see her but wasn't directly looking for her. She was a woman at a gala. Unremarkable. Powerful. Alone. Derek's eyes found her. She watched him from the corner of her vision, saw the moment his brain tried to place her face. Saw confusion flicker across his features. Saw him turn back to his conversation, then look at her again. The recognition wasn't coming. That was perfect. Monica turned fully and met his gaze. She smiled, not warmly, but with the professional confidence of someone meeting a colleague. She extended her hand across the space and introduced herself with her professional name. Derek stood, extended his hand back. When their palms touched, Monica felt the electricity of proximity to someone who held her entire history. He had no idea who she was. "I've heard about your development project," Monica said, her voice steady and professional. "Impressive portfolio. You must have been working in real estate for quite some time." Derek smiled, that same smile that had once made her feel seen. Now it just made her feel nothing. "Always," he said. "Have we met before?" Monica held his gaze for exactly 1 second longer than necessary. "Not yet," she said. "But perhaps tonight." The moment she walked in, everything changed. He didn't recognize her. And that was the first signal that his destruction had already begun. This is where the game truly starts. Like if you felt that electric tension. Comment what happens next. She showed up at his door soaked from the rain, not for charity or business, but because for the first time in her life, she wanted something just for herself. 3 days had passed since the gala. 3 days of Monica positioning herself strategically at industry events, always where Derek could see her. 3 days of subtle comments about his business practices, his past, his character. 3 days of watching his confidence crack under the weight of uncertainty. Then Monica's phone rang. Her mother's doctor. Emergency. The experimental treatment had complications. They needed to make a decision about surgery. The cost was astronomical. Monica's hands shook as she hung up. For 5 years, she'd built her life around one purpose: destroying Derek Richardson. She'd sacrificed relationships, peace, genuine connection, everything for this moment. But now, facing her mother's illness, Monica realized something fundamental had shifted inside her. She didn't want revenge anymore. She wanted to live. That realization terrified her more than anything Derek had ever done. She sat in her apartment as rain hammered the windows, and she made a choice that violated every rule she'd set for herself. She reached out to Derek. Not as an enemy. As a woman in crisis. "I need to see you," she texted from a number he didn't recognize. "Tonight. I need your help, and I don't know who else to ask." He arrived at her penthouse at 9:47 p.m., soaking wet, confused, his guard completely down. Monica opened the door wearing nothing but a simple dress, her vulnerability visible in ways she'd spent 5 years hiding. "My mother is sick," she said before he could ask. "Terminal. The treatment she needs, I can't afford it. I know we barely know each other, but you're the only person I could think of who might understand what desperation feels like." Derek stared at her. Something shifted in his expression, not the arrogance she'd been waiting to confront, but genuine compassion. He reached out, touched her face gently, and asked, "What do you need?" Monica hadn't expected kindness. She'd expected business. She'd expected negotiation. She'd expected him to see her vulnerability as weakness. Instead, he pulled her close and held her while she cried. For the first time in 5 years, Monica allowed herself to break. Not strategically, not calculatively, but genuinely. The tears came from somewhere deep, somewhere she'd sealed off the moment she'd sat on that airport floor. Derek whispered that everything would be okay. He made calls to his network. Within 2 hours, he'd arranged for her mother's surgery to be covered, no loans, no strings, no conditions. "Why?" Monica asked, her voice raw. "Because I recognize what it looks like when someone's trying to survive," he said quietly. "And I never want to be the person who makes that harder." Monica looked at this man she'd spent 5 years plotting against, and something inside her fractured. He wasn't the same person who'd hurt her. Or maybe she wasn't the same person who'd been hurt. They stood in her penthouse as rain continued outside, and Derek reached for her with tenderness. Monica didn't stop him. Instead, she pulled him closer. Their kiss was desperate and real, not a strategy, but a surrender. What happens when revenge meets unexpected compassion? Have you ever had someone see your worth when you couldn't see it yourself? Monica's about to discover that sometimes the person you're hunting is not who you thought they were. Drop a heart if you've experienced that moment of unexpected kindness. Running was the only thing she knew how to do perfectly, until the day's silence hurt more than staying. Monica woke at 4 a.m. in Derek's arms, panic flooding through her body. What had she done? She'd compromised everything. 5 years of planning, of building armor, of maintaining distance, destroyed in a single night of vulnerability. She slipped out of bed without waking him. She gathered her things in the darkness. By the time Derek stirred, she was gone. She didn't return his calls. Didn't respond to his texts. Didn't acknowledge the flowers or the letters he sent to her office. She simply disappeared back into the carefully constructed life she'd built, but now that life felt like a prison. Days became weeks. Monica threw herself into work, expanding her business, making deals, building wealth. But for the first time, the success felt hollow. Money came easily now, but it didn't satisfy. Power accumulated, but it felt empty. She found herself staring at her phone, reading Derek's messages, remembering the way he'd held her. One night, unable to sleep, Monica stood in her penthouse looking out at Miami's lights. She replayed everything. The moment at the gala. The conversations. The night in the rain. The way he touched her like she was sacred instead of expendable. She'd built her entire identity around becoming someone who would never need anyone. Who would never be vulnerable. Who would never risk being hurt again. But in distancing herself from Derek, she'd also distanced herself from humanity. She'd become the very thing she'd feared, untouchable. By day 5, Monica couldn't function. She called in sick to meetings. She cancelled her schedule. She sat in her apartment remembering what it had felt like to be held by someone who saw her as valuable. The envelope arrived on the 6th day, slipped under her door. Inside was a handwritten letter in Derek's precise handwriting. "I don't know what happened between us. I don't know why you ran. I don't know if I did something wrong or if you're protecting yourself from something. But I need you to know, I meant every word I said. I'm not asking for anything. I just need to know if you regret it." Monica sat on her floor holding that letter, and something broke open inside her. She'd spent 5 years becoming invincible. But invincibility meant solitude. It meant isolation. It meant building a life where nobody could hurt her because nobody was allowed close enough to matter. Derek had gotten closer than anyone since the airport floor, and she'd responded to his kindness by running. Monica looked at her reflection in her apartment windows, successful, wealthy, completely alone, and realized that sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else. Sometimes it's about destroying yourself, piece by piece, believing that control equals safety. Have you ever run from something good because it scared you how much you wanted it? Have you built walls so high that nobody could climb them and discovered that nobody was trying anymore? Tell me below. Some conversations change your life not because of what's said, but because for the first time, you stop hiding from the truth. Monica called Derek from Central Park. She didn't ask if he wanted to meet, she just told him when and where. She needed to see him in a neutral space. Somewhere public enough that she couldn't lose control. Somewhere open enough that she could breathe. He arrived 20 minutes early, waiting on the bench where she'd asked him to meet. Autumn had painted the park in shades of gold and red. Leaves spiraled down around them as Monica sat beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. I lied to you, Monica said finally. About who I am. About my intentions. About everything. Derek waited. Monica told him. Not everything, not about the 5 years of planning, not about the research and surveillance. But she told him enough. She told him she'd gone to the gala specifically to hurt him. She told him she'd orchestrated their meetings. She told him she'd built her entire life around revenge for something he'd done years ago. She watched his face transform through confusion, realization, hurt, and finally something like understanding. Who did I hurt? He asked quietly. Monica met his eyes. Do you really not remember? Or are there so many that they blur together? Derek's jaw clenched. And then his face changed again into genuine recognition. His eyes widened. You're her, he whispered. You're the woman from Atlanta. You're Monica. The name hung between them. The old name. The name of the woman she'd left behind on an airport floor. I was, Monica said. But I spent 5 years becoming someone else. Derek stared at her with an intensity that made her skin warm despite the autumn chill. I was wrong, he said. I was cruel. I hurt you in ways I've never forgiven myself for. I've spent every day since trying to understand how I became that person. What changed? Monica asked. Prison, Derek said quietly. Not actual prison. But close enough. I had years to remember everything I did. Every woman I hurt. Every life I damaged. And I made a choice. I could spend the rest of my life justifying it, or I could spend it trying to be different. Monica felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't the arrogant man from the airport. This was someone who'd done the work of becoming better. I came here to destroy you, she admitted. I know, Derek said. But you didn't. You came here, and instead, you let me help your mother. You let me see you as vulnerable. You gave me a chance to be something other than the man I was. Rain began falling, not heavy, but persistent. Autumn rain that smelled like endings and beginnings. You make me feel seen, Monica said slowly, repeating words she'd avoided for 5 years. And that terrifies me because what happens when you really look and don't like what you find? Derek reached for her hand. Then we look together. And we figure it out. But I don't think you're going to like what I find, Monica. I think you're going to be shocked to discover that you're worth the investment. When was the last time you were completely honest with someone about your fears? About what you really wanted? Share your experience below. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is tell the truth. She invited him to her apartment not as a visitor but as a challenge. Prove you want me, not just what I represent. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of Monica and Derek rebuilding what they'd begun at the gala, but this time without strategies or deception. Just 2 people learning each other slowly. Then Monica invited him to her apartment on a Friday night, and she was terrified. Derek arrived carrying wine and uncertainty. Monica answered the door wearing a simple black dress and armor that had nothing to do with clothing. She was done hiding, but she wasn't done protecting herself. I need to tell you something, she said before he could kiss her hello. For 5 years, I built my life around becoming someone who didn't need anyone. Someone who couldn't be hurt because I was too strong, too smart, too controlled. That's who I am, Derek. That's not changing. Derek stepped inside and closed the door. I know. I don't do vulnerability easily, Monica continued. I don't ask for help. I don't rely on people. And I'm not going to become someone I'm not, even for you. I'm not asking you to, Derek said. And I need equal partnership, Monica said, her voice steady. Not rescue. Not protection. Not a man who decides things for me. I'm an equal or I'm gone. Derek crossed the apartment and kissed her, not gently, but with intensity. I need that too, he said against her lips. I need a woman who challenges me. Who doesn't need me but chooses me anyway. Who's strong enough to stand beside me, not behind me. They moved to her bedroom, and this time was completely different from the first time. Monica took control. She undressed him deliberately, with confidence, making clear that her body belonged to her and she was choosing to share it. When Derek tried to take the lead, she stopped him with a look. I'm not glass, she said between kisses, backing him against the counter. Stop handling me like I'll break. She pushed him against the wall and kissed him with hunger that came from 5 years of deprivation. Show me what you want, she demanded, echoing his own words from another lifetime. His eyes darkened as he lifted her onto the counter, finally matching her intensity with his own. They came together not as victim and perpetrator, not as strangers with hidden agendas, but as 2 equals who'd chosen each other despite everything. Afterward, they lay tangled in her sheets, and Monica felt something she thought had died 5 years ago, peace. Then Derek's phone buzzed. Multiple times. He checked it and sat up abruptly. "Crisis at my company," he said, frustrated. "I have to go. I'm sorry." Monica watched him dress, and doubt whispered its familiar voice. When worlds collide, something always breaks. She just didn't know yet which one of them would shatter first. "Go," she said calmly, but as the door closed behind him, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. What's more intimate, letting someone see your vulnerability or showing them your strength? Have you ever demanded equality in a relationship? Comment below with your thoughts. People say love bridges different worlds. Nobody tells you how terrifying it is to stand in the middle, wondering if the bridge will hold. The next 3 months tested everything. Derek brought Monica into his professional world. She attended board meetings where his colleagues assessed her with barely concealed skepticism. A woman who wasn't connected to money. A woman who'd appeared from nowhere. A woman dating their boss. But Monica didn't shrink. She sat in the boardroom wearing confidence like an accessory, and when Derek asked her opinion on development strategy, she offered insights that made his executives reconsider their approach. She belonged there because she'd earned it. Derek, in turn, entered Monica's world. He came to her small office in Wynwood. He met her crew of female entrepreneurs and investors. He listened to her plans for independent projects, and instead of offering to fund them, he asked for her strategy and offered to learn from it. One afternoon, Derek mentioned creating a foundation focused on medical access for underserved communities. Monica recognized the gesture. He was trying to build something that mattered to her, not to him. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked carefully. "A partnership," Derek said. "Your vision. My resources. Building something that helps people who are where your mother was. Where you were when you needed help desperately." Monica felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't him saving her. This was him standing beside her. They worked together developing the foundation. Monica led the vision. Derek handled logistics and funding. They argued about approach. They compromised. They built something real. One evening, working late in his office at his downtown headquarters, Derek pulled Monica close. The city spread below them in a carpet of lights. "I'm in love with you," he said. "I have been since you walked into that gala pretending not to recognize me. I knew something was different about you. I just didn't understand what until much later." Monica kissed him not as strategy, but as genuine choice. But later that night, scrolling through her phone before sleep, Monica saw it, a headline in the Miami Society pages. "CEO's new project and new love." The article was detailed. Too detailed. It mentioned her professional background, her rise from nothing, her connection to Derek's foundation. And then one line that made her blood run cold: "Sources say Richardson's current girlfriend has a complicated past in Atlanta, though details remain unclear." Monica's hands shook. Someone had talked. Someone had connected her to her past. Which meant the surrogacy contract, the original agreement she'd almost made before Derek stopped her, was now vulnerable to discovery. Have you ever felt like you were living in 2 different worlds? How did you bridge that gap? Monica's about to discover that every action has consequences, and sometimes the past finds you when you've finally started to believe you've escaped it. What would you do if your secrets were exposed? She got everything she'd wanted. So why did she feel like she'd lost something? Monica sat in her penthouse staring at her phone, reading the Society page article for the 100th time. The exposure felt like a violation. But what terrified her more was the realization that the exposure didn't matter as much as she thought it would. She'd spent 5 years building a life around one purpose: making Derek Richardson pay. She transformed herself into a weapon. She'd calculated every move. She'd executed her plan with surgical precision. And when the moment came to destroy him, she discovered something devastating. She didn't want to. Derek arrived at her door an hour later, having seen the same article. "People are going to talk," he said immediately. "They're going to speculate about your past. They're going to dig. But Monica, I'm standing with you through all of it." Monica looked at him and felt the weight of 5 years press down on her chest. She'd built this entire fortress to avoid exactly this: vulnerability, dependence, trust. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. The words felt like admitting defeat. Derek pulled her close. "Neither do I. But we figure it out together." But that was the problem. Monica had spent so long becoming invincible that she didn't know how to be human anymore. She'd weaponized her pain. She'd turned her trauma into ambition. She'd built a life that had no room for genuine connection. The revenge she'd executed so carefully felt empty now. Derek was still breathing. Still living. Still happy. Her years of planning hadn't destroyed him, they just wasted her own life. Over the next few days, more articles emerged. Someone had found old records from Atlanta. Someone had connected the dots. The details remained vague, but the implication was clear: Monica's rise had been calculated. Her appearance in Miami wasn't coincidence. Monica waited for the shame. Instead, she found clarity. She called Derek one afternoon and made a decision. "I need to tell the truth," she said. "All of it. About the gala. About my intentions. About why I came to Miami. I'm tired of hiding." Derek was silent for a moment. "You understand that could destroy your business reputation?" "I understand," Monica said. "But living with this lie is destroying me." She scheduled a press conference. She stood in front of cameras with Derek beside her and told the story, not the revenge part, but the trauma. She spoke about being hurt. About surviving. About rebuilding. She spoke about meeting Derek and discovering that healing was possible. She didn't mention the planning. She didn't mention the surveillance. But she made clear that her relationship with Derek was built on genuine connection, not strategy. The response was unexpected. Instead of condemnation, she received empathy. Women reached out sharing their own survival stories. People understood her journey. Monica realized something profound. Her real victory wasn't Derek's destruction. It was her own resurrection. The hardest part of healing is letting go of the pain. Have you ever had to rebuild your identity? Have you built your life around proving someone wrong? Comment below if you've experienced that moment of realization. The world loves to tear down what it doesn't understand, a woman who survived with a man who changed. But what they didn't know was that judgment only made them hold on tighter. Camera flashes exploded like lightning as Monica and Derek left the hospital. Her mother's doctor had called with good news, but the media had other priorities. Reporters shouted questions about their relationship, about Monica's past, about whether this was genuine or calculated. Derek placed his hand on the small of her back, not to guide her, but to ground himself. Monica walked straight ahead, eyes forward, refusing to be defined by other people's narratives. Inside the hospital, Monica's mother was recovering from successful surgery. The cancer was treatable. She would survive. But outside these walls, the court of public opinion was far less forgiving. Online, the discourse was brutal. Some called Monica a social climber who'd seduced a wealthy CEO. Others defended her as a survivor who'd overcome impossible circumstances. Derek was painted as either a victim of manipulation or a man who genuinely changed. Every angle was weaponized. The worst part came when an Atlanta reporter dug deeper and found references to the surrogacy contract, the one Monica had almost signed 5 years ago out of desperation. A headline screamed, "CEO's girlfriend nearly became surrogate before meeting him." The implication was ugly, that Monica had agreed to prostitution before Derek rescued her. Monica read it and felt rage so complete it burned. This wasn't truth. This was character assassination wrapped in curiosity. This was the world deciding a woman's value based on her worst moment. She called Derek, ready to have him issue a statement defending her. Instead, he arrived at her apartment with something different, rage. "I'm going to sue that publication," he said immediately. "What they printed is defamatory and false. You didn't prostitute yourself. You were desperate to save your mother's life. That makes you human, not disposable." Monica stared at him. He wasn't defending his relationship with her. He was defending her right to have been desperate and human. They held each other that night, not sexually, but with the kind of physical closeness that says, "I see you. I'm not going anywhere." The lawsuit went forward. The publication was forced to print a retraction and apology. The narrative shifted slightly, not completely, but enough. More importantly, Monica discovered something about herself. She didn't need Derek to validate her worth. But having someone stand beside her while she reclaimed it made the process less lonely. One night, watching the news coverage fade, Monica turned to Derek. "I spent 5 years trying to destroy you," she said quietly. "And now I understand that I was really trying to destroy the part of me that believed I deserved destruction." Derek kissed her forehead. "That part of you is gone now." "It's not gone," Monica corrected. "But it's not running my life anymore." Have you ever been misunderstood or judged for your survival choices? How did you handle it? Share your story below. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is refuse to accept someone else's narrative about our life. 1 year ago, she stood ready to trade her body for her mother's life. Today, she stood on a stage ready to change a system that forced women like her to make impossible choices. The community center gleamed in the morning sun, now officially the Monica Harrison Health Equity Center. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was scheduled for 10 a.m. News crews had arrived. Community members filled the space. Derek stood to the side, letting Monica own this moment completely. Monica's mother stood at the ribbon, frail but present. Healed. Alive. Ready to cut. Monica addressed the crowd without notes, speaking from her heart about what this building meant. "This center exists because I was desperate enough to consider selling myself. Because my mother deserved better. Because every person deserves access to healthcare regardless of their bank account." She didn't mention Derek's money. She spoke about the partnership that had made it possible, her vision, his resources, their shared commitment to justice. Her mother cut the ribbon, and the crowd erupted. Inside, Monica gave tours of the facility. Free clinics, counseling services, support groups for survivors, a scholarship program for young people from underserved communities. Everything born from the desperation she'd felt 5 years ago. Later that evening, alone in the foundation office, Monica and Derek stood together looking out at the city. "I would have destroyed you," Monica said quietly. "If I'd gone through with my plan, you would be in prison right now based on false accusations I was planning to make." "I know," Derek said. "But you didn't. You chose differently. Because you showed me kindness I didn't think I deserved," Monica said. "What if you hadn't? What if you'd been the same person who hurt me 5 years ago?" Derek took her hand. "Then you would have destroyed me, and maybe I would have deserved it. But that's not who either of us is anymore." Monica leaned against him, and for the first time in her adult life, she felt completely safe. If someone told you that love wasn't about rescue but recognition, would you believe them? If they said dignity matters more than desire, would you understand? Comment below what true partnership means to you. She once believed love was a luxury she couldn't afford. Until the day the richest man she knew offered her the only thing that mattered, choice. 2 years after the foundation opening, Derek took Monica to a rooftop garden at their brownstone in Brooklyn. The stars were visible despite the city lights, something that shouldn't have been possible but was. String lights created a canopy above them. The city sprawled below Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, a world they'd learned to navigate together. "I'm not asking you to be mine," Derek said, his voice steady as he lowered to one knee. "I'm asking if we can be each other's equal partners, building something neither of us could create alone." The ring wasn't huge or ostentatious. It was elegant, powerful, like Monica herself. She said yes without hesitation. They didn't plan a big wedding. Instead, they organized a ceremony that reflected who they'd become: Monica's mother present, the women from Monica's early business circles, Derek's reformed network. They said vows about partnership and growth and choosing each other daily despite every reason not to. Monica wore white but refused the passive bride role. She walked herself down the aisle. She spoke her vows first. She claimed her power in every moment. When they kissed as married partners, the crowd cheered. That night, alone in their hotel room, they celebrated not as conqueror and conquered, but as two equals who'd chosen to build a life together. Derek made love to her with a reverence that had deepened over time, each touch still a question, each kiss still permission sought and granted. Monica responded with the confidence of a woman who no longer feared her own desire. Later, as they lay together, Monica felt something shift inside her body. A fluttering. A movement. She sat up suddenly. "I'm late," she whispered. Derek sat up beside her. "Late? My period. I'm 5 days late. And I've been feeling different." "Derek, I think I'm pregnant." She watched his face transform, not with shock, but with wonder. "Is this what you want?" he asked, even though they'd discussed children many times. "Yes," Monica said. "I want this. I want a child we've created by choice, not contract. I want to build this family with you." Derek pulled her close, and Monica felt the final piece of her resurrection settle into place. "What would your answer be to a proposal that honors your independence while offering partnership? Tell me in the comments what your ideal commitment looks like." The body she once offered as sacrifice now created life by choice, the ultimate testament to what happens when love sees dignity instead of desperation. The nursery glowed soft yellow in morning light. Hand-painted constellations covered the ceiling, not just fairytale stars, but the actual night sky visible from Brooklyn the night Monica and Derek had met at his penthouse during the rain. Monica stood in the doorway, 8 months pregnant, watching Derek place the final touches on the crib. She'd offered to help, but he'd insisted. "Let me build this," he'd said. "Let me show our daughter that her father knows how to create safety." Their daughter. In her body right now. Created by choice, not desperation. Monica placed his hand on her swollen belly, where life stirred beneath her skin. "Do you ever think about how close we came to never existing?" she asked. "Every day," Derek said. "If you hadn't gone to that gala. If I hadn't said no to the surrogacy contract. If you'd actually destroyed me like you planned. We wouldn't be here." "I never would have destroyed you," Monica said, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. "She might have, once upon a time." "I know," Derek said. "Because you chose to become better instead." Monica looked around the nursery, this space that represented everything she'd never thought possible. A home. A partnership. A future. A child created not out of desperation but out of deliberate choice. The pregnancy had been easy. The doctors said she was strong. The years of survival had built her body into something resilient. She carried their daughter with the same strength she'd used to rebuild her entire life. Derek kissed her tenderly, that had deepened, not diminished with time. Each touch was still reverent. Each kiss still a reminder that her body had never been a transaction but always a temple worthy of worship even before he'd recognized its worth. 6 weeks later, Monica gave birth to a daughter they named Aria, a name meaning melody, because from their first meeting, everything between them had felt like music. Holding her daughter for the first time, Monica felt something shift in her soul. This wasn't the body that had almost been sold. This was the body that had created life through choice. Through love. Through genuine partnership. She looked at Derek holding their daughter, and she understood something profound. Her greatest victory wasn't Derek's destruction. It wasn't revenge or justice or even survival. It was becoming someone capable of genuine love. It was choosing to build instead of burn. It was using her strength not as a weapon but as a foundation. So what would you do if someone saw your worth before you believed in it yourself? Would you run? Or would you build something that lasts? If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that make you feel, think, and maybe even heal a little. Tell me in the comments what aspect of Monica's journey resonated most with you. Was it her survival? Her strength? Her choice to love despite her fear? Remember, the most powerful love doesn't rescue you from your life. It recognizes the strength that's been there all along. Monica went from a woman bleeding on an airport floor to a woman building a legacy. From seeking revenge to creating justice. From isolation to genuine partnership. Her story isn't about being saved. It's about reclaiming yourself. And sometimes that's the most powerful victory of all.